The diplomatic station floated above the quiet edge of neutral space. It was a wide metal ring with slow-turning lights, old machines, and a peaceful atmosphere that did not match the pride and ego that filled the meeting chamber. The chamber was large, with a long oval table made from dark alloy. Transparent walls looked out into the stars. Every species in the room could see their ships waiting outside, big war machines that reflected who they were. 5 alien commanders sat around the table, each one representing a powerful civilization. They spoke with loud voices and dramatic gestures, as if each one wanted to make sure the others understood how strong they were. The first was commander of the Dominion. His body was covered in thick red plates, and his eyes shone with a sharp glow. He talked about the firestorm cannons that could melt a mountain in seconds. He explained how his ship, the Dominion Talon, had destroyed pirate fleets with no losses. Every time he spoke, he hit the table with one heavy fist as if each word needed force. The second commander was of the Collective. Her body was slim, almost transparent, with threads of light moving inside. She spoke calmly but proudly about her battleship, a quiet silver vessel that could cloak itself from all sensors. She said her ship could travel through a battlefield like a ghost, unseen and untouched. Her voice was soft, but the pride in her tone was strong. The third was of the Swarm. His insect-like body clicked with every movement. He described how his swarm-driven ship released small attack drones that moved like a living cloud. He claimed no enemy had ever escaped once the drones were released. He made hissing sounds when he spoke, a sign of amusement and superiority. The fourth alien was of the Alliance. Her green fur shimmered with every breath. She lifted her chin high as she talked about the rail cannons of her ship. She said they could fire metal projectiles faster than any shield could react. She told stories of long-range shots that destroyed targets from halfway across a system. The fifth commander was of the Guild. His body was round and heavy, with many small eyes that opened and closed at random. He bragged about his ship's antimatter cells. He said even a small detonation from his vessel could erase a city from orbit. He spoke loudly, as if shouting made his words more true. They argued for many minutes, each one trying to raise their voice over the others. Their words filled the room like storm clouds, but one person at the table did not speak. Commander Laura Hayes, the human envoy, sat quietly. She wore a simple dark uniform. Her dark hair was tied back, and she watched the alien commanders without any sign of pride or anger. She listened to every boast, every threat, every challenge, but she did not join the competition. She simply observed. Her calm silence confused the aliens. They looked at her from time to time, wondering why she said nothing about human ships. Humans had taken part in many conflicts across space. They were known for fast growth, quick thinking, and sudden innovations. But at this moment, Laura offered no stories about human weapons. She did not compare human ships with theirs. She just waited. Commander finally turned toward her and growled. He asked why the human envoy had nothing to say. He wanted to hear what humans believed made their ship strong. He expected her to brag like the others. But Laura only smiled politely and said that the human fleet preferred to show rather than to talk. Her answer made some of the aliens laugh. Others grew irritated. Before any of them could respond, the room lights flashed yellow, and a soft alarm filled the air. The entire station shook slightly. A communication officer at the door rushed inside and announced that a large gravitational signature had appeared at the edge of the system. The aliens looked at each other. Some thought a rival fleet had come to intimidate them. Some believed a hidden enemy had chosen this moment to strike. Others assumed one of the 5 commanders had called for backup to show more power. The alarm continued. The station's sensors struggled to understand what was entering the system. All readings looked wrong. The mass was too large. The energy output was too high. Even the gravitational pull felt unnatural. The room became quiet. Commander Laura looked at the window. Her face did not change. It was as if she already knew what was coming. Outside, the stars stretched, space warped. A bright tier opened and something enormous stepped out of hyperspace. At first, the aliens thought it was several ships together. Then they thought it was a moving piece of a planet. But as the shape became clear, they realized it was one vessel, bigger than anything they had ever imagined. The human flagship Horizon Spear arrived with a slow turn, like a giant waking from sleep. Its hull was layered with different shades of armored metal. Blue lines of energy pulsed along its surface. The ship blocked out part of the stars. It cast a huge shadow over the station. The alien commanders stood up from their seats. Their eyes widened. Some stepped back without realizing it. Their sensors reported impossible values. The Horizon Spear was more than 3 times larger than any of their warships. Its reactor output was beyond known limits. Its shield signature was so heavy that it distorted small asteroids nearby, pulling them in new directions. Commander tried to activate her personal scanner, but it froze. Some emergency data pads shut down. Sphere raised in shock, made a strange trembling sound as he stared at the ship. Commander spoke first. His voice, usually strong, now sounded thin. He asked Commander Laura what kind of ship this was. She answered calmly. She said it was only the Horizon Spear, the human flagship. She explained that it arrived early for the negotiation meetings. No one spoke for several seconds. The ship continued to move closer. Its engines released silent waves of blue light. Every alien ship outside the station adjusted their position automatically, forced by the gravity wells around the massive vessel. A message came through the chamber speakers. The voice was clear and friendly. It greeted the station and said the human delegation had come in peace. The voice belonged to Admiral Jason Cole, the commanding officer of the Horizon Spear. The aliens felt a chill. They had spent the last hour boasting about their ships, but none of them had mentioned anything close to the size and strength of what they were seeing now. Commander whispered that his ship's antimatter cells would barely scratch the surface of the human flagship. Commander admitted that even his swarm drones would be destroyed before they reached the hull. Said nothing, but she understood her rail cannons could not penetrate shields that strong. Stared quietly, shocked that her cloak could not hide something this large. Even the proudest of the group remained silent. Laura Hayes stood from her seat and walked toward the window. Her voice stayed calm as she explained that humanity had advanced quickly in recent years. She said the Horizon Spear was built not for conquest, but to keep peace in contested sectors. She added that humans only revealed heavy ships like this when it was necessary. The aliens could not look away from the massive vessel. It moved with slow confidence. Every motion showed power that did not need to be spoken. After several minutes, the room lights returned to normal. The alarm turned off. The station stabilized. Laura turned to the commanders and gently reminded them that the diplomatic meeting was still ongoing. She invited them to remain calm and continue the discussion. But the aliens no longer wanted to argue about who had the strongest battleship. Their pride had melted the moment the Horizon Spear arrived. Commander, usually fierce and loud, asked in a respectful tone if the humans would allow the aliens to board the flagship. He said they wished to understand its purpose. Laura nodded and said she would ask Admiral Cole. She stepped aside to send a coded message. When she returned, she told them the Admiral agreed to a controlled visit. The alien commanders exchanged uneasy looks. They were afraid to show fear, but they also could not pretend they were not shocked. A transport ship soon approached the station. Its design matched the flagship's sharp style, with long metal lines and blue energy shining underneath. The aliens boarded the transport along with Laura. None of them spoke during the short flight. As the transport moved closer to the Horizon Spear, the aliens realized the ship was even bigger than they first thought. Some parts of the hull stretched beyond the visible edge of the viewports. When they entered the landing bay, the aliens saw hundreds of human crew members working in quiet efficiency. Machines moved on clean tracks. Drones floated above repair stations. Everything felt organized and professional. The alien commanders stepped onto the metal floor. Laura guided them through the wide halls. The walls glowed softly with blue lines. The air smelled clean and warm. The aliens stared at everything with wide eyes. The level of technology around them felt beyond anything they had seen. They passed engineering rooms with giant reactors behind thick glass. They saw energy flows like rivers of blue light. They heard the controlled hum of systems running with perfect balance. Commander whispered that no cloaking system she knew could hide something this advanced, muttered that no swarm of drones could break through such defenses, said even the guild's strongest antimatter blasts seemed weak now. Laura continued walking until they reached a large elevator. It lifted them toward the upper command sections. When the doors opened, Admiral Jason Cole stood waiting for them. He greeted them kindly. He did not appear proud or arrogant. He simply looked like a leader who carried responsibility. He welcomed them to the Horizon Sphere and invited them to follow him. The aliens followed the Admiral into the command hall. It was a large cylindrical room with floating screens and holographic maps. Human officers worked at their stations with calm focus. The entire room felt steady, ready, and powerful. The Admiral showed them a wide holographic display of the ship's strategy systems. He explained how the Horizon Sphere was built to defend human space and support peaceful agreements. He said the ship only fought when there was no other option. The aliens watched silent simulations of battles. Each one showed the ship using overwhelming defensive strength, ending conflicts quickly to avoid loss of life. The alien commanders realized something they had never understood before. Humans did not stay quiet because they were weak. They stayed quiet because they did not need to prove anything. When the tour ended, the aliens left the ship with heavy thoughts. They knew their civilizations were powerful, but they now understood that humans were on a different level entirely. Back in the meeting chamber, none of the aliens dared to boast again. They spoke respectfully. They listened carefully. They agreed to begin new talks for peace and cooperation. Commander Laura sat quietly again, watching them with a small smile. The Horizon Sphere waited outside, silent and calm, its presence stronger than any words. The alien commanders left the human flagship with quiet faces. They could not stop thinking about what they had seen. The Horizon Sphere hung in space like a promise. Its size and calm power sat in the minds of the alien leaders. None of them wanted to show fear, but each one felt it in a new way. Back in the meeting room, the 5 commanders returned to the table. Their talk had changed. They no longer tried to shout louder than one another. Instead, they asked questions. They wanted to know more about the human navy and its ways. Laura sat with them and answered simply. She spoke of duty, of limits, and of the heavy cost of war. Her words were not full of pride. They were full of truth. The asked how humans had made such a strong ship. He wanted to know what secret craft made the Horizon Sphere so powerful. Laura did not reveal everything. She said some things were not for open talk, but she did explain the human idea that strength should be held so that it could stop greater harm. That idea felt strange to the aliens at first. Most of their worlds had built power to take and win. Asked about the ship's cloaking possibility, she wanted to know if the human ship could hide. Laura smiled and gently said the Horizon Sphere chose not to hide its size. It stood as a clear sign. It said loudly that some actions would bring a price. Nodded slowly. The idea of standing in the open like that felt odd to her people, who used hidden blades and silent strikes. Wanted to know about the drones and the defenses. Was curious about reactors and safety. Thought about range and speed. The questions came fast. Laura answered what she could, always careful. Humans kept certain technical facts secret, but they shared values. That sharing formed a small bridge of trust. Days passed. The neutral station became a place of slow work. Technical teams met in small rooms. Engineers from different species walked between tables and swapped simple ideas. Human mechanics taught alien crews how to check a power node. An alien scientist showed a new shield harmonizer that used crystal phases. They all learned in small steps. The talks moved from machines to people. Delegates spoke of home worlds, food, music, and small things that made life bright. The aliens smiled when they tasted human coffee. A few of them found the heat and strong flavor odd, but they liked the energy it brought. A technician from the tried a small cup and made a face, then laughed with loud clicks. Moments like that made the long days lighter. One evening, when the station's ring glowed red with sunset from a nearby star, a message arrived. It was short, and it carried a tone that made every room still. A distress call came from a small convoy on the far edge of a nearby sector. The convoy carried refugees and merchant ships. It had come under attack from a group that called themselves Free Raiders. These raiders had no clear flag and no care for life. They took what they wanted. The alien commanders looked at one another. The raiders had attacked a convoy that was not theirs. Still, the thought of such violence touched them. Eyes narrowed. He spoke of the honor that still mattered in battle, frowned and said they would not stand for such crimes, seemed more cautious. She wanted to know who led the raiders and why, clicked angrily while stroked a small device on his plate. Laura listened. She felt a pull in her chest. She knew the human fleet was vast, but they had not come to take the galaxy by force. The human crew of the Horizon Spear had a strong code. They did not ignore calls for help. Admiral Jason Cole stood in the command hall of the Horizon Spear and read the same message. He weighed the situation carefully. Sending the whole flagship to the convoy could stop the raiders, but it could also inflame tensions. The human ship already had a great presence in the system. Any movement might be read as a threat. He called Laura and the alien leaders and told them what he wanted to do. He planned a precise operation. The Horizon Spear would not fire its heavy guns. It would use speed and smart use of smaller craft. The goal was to save lives and to capture the raiders if possible. He wanted to show strength, but not to crush. Some of the alien commanders wanted to join the mission, offered a squad of fighters, pledged 2 rail ships, suggested deploying some of his swarm drones, argued for a careful plan that would reduce risk to civilians, offered a small ship with special sensors. The offers came quickly, and none of them hid a certain eagerness to prove worth. Admiral Cole accepted help but set conditions. He would lead the operation and control the battle plan. All craft would follow careful rules to prevent accidents. No one would use world-ending weapons. Everyone would agree to take prisoners alive if possible. The terms felt strict to some, but they also held a sense of fairness. The convoy lay near a cold cluster of asteroids. It was small, and its ships moved in close formations. The raiders had come at night, striking hard. They had taken many small transports and left others adrift. The survivors were tired and frightened. Children huddled in cold cargo holds. Merchants looked at empty holds with hollow faces. The Allied force gathered like a wave. Human escort shuttles and alien fighters moved through the dark. The Horizon Spear stayed hidden beyond a safe gravity hill. The plan was to use surprise and speed. At the edge of the scene, Laura stood in a small human shuttle. Beside her, a pilot named watched the instruments, had rough scales and a wide jaw. He had been eager to show his flying skill. He had told stories of how they had taken whole planets and broken blockades. He now seemed quiet and serious. The shuttles breathed in space and then pushed forward. The raiders were near a broken freighter. Their flag was black with no known mark. Their fighters were fast and cruel. They fired first when they saw the Allied ships. The sky lit with tracer lines. The Allied pilots moved like a taut net. Human gunners kept calm and small boats moved to block the raiders. Cloaked skiff slipped close and used an EMP pulse to knock raider comms. Sent a controlled swarm of drones that cut engines without tearing hulls. The rail ships fired short, precise bursts that disabled raider propulsion. The sensor ship found the hidden raider leader's position. The battle was quick but tense. It was not clean. One human shuttle took a hit and burned. The pilot, a young man named Daniel, kept his ship steady long enough for his crew to escape. He died when the hull ruptured. His loss hit the Allied force hard. They took the raiders more seriously now. When the raider leader saw the Allied force close in, he tried to flee. His craft was fast, one of the small fighters that the Free Raiders used. The Allied force chased him into a narrow field of debris. There, the Horizon Spear's smaller craft lay in wait. They boxed the raider in. Admiral Cole had ordered the use of non-lethal methods. A human net of energy wrapped the raider ship, slowing it to a stop. Boarding crews arrived quickly. They found a small, brutal force inside. The raider captain was a human-shaped alien named, but his eyes burned with hate. He spat words of anger. He had chosen this path because of loss and greed. He had no pity. The Allied teams brought the raiders in. They took prisoners with ropes and soft cuffs. They gave first aid to the wounded. The survivors of the convoy wept and thanked the rescuers. The children were given warm blankets and small toys. For a moment the cold space seemed kinder. Back on the Horizon Spear, the captive sat in a holding cell and watched wide-eyed as humans walked by with quiet care. He did not move much. He saw one young medic sitting with a child, reading a small story. The child fell asleep with a soft breath. His face did not show pity, but his hands trembled. The alien commanders watched the raid outcome. They had expected a fight and perhaps captured pride. Instead, they saw a lesson. Humans used force to protect life first. They took prisoners and gave aid. They used strength to stop suffering more than to take victory. That way felt both strange and deep to the alien leaders. They came to Laura. He did not speak many words, but his eyes held respect. He had flown with the humans and had lost a friend. He said he would sing a tune for the fallen pilot when he returned home. His voice cracked once. It was the first sign that the old pride had changed. Admiral Cole met with the alien commanders after the raid. They stood in a quiet room with a view of the freed convoy pulling away. Cole said the fight had cost them too much, but it had saved many lives. He praised the Allied work and thanked everyone for restraint, bowed his head slightly. He felt the truth of the Admiral's words. Not all the commanders changed, worried that such mercy might make them weak. He feared that this path would let the worst elements grow bolder, questioned whether taking prisoners was truly fair, argued that it was better to learn and change than to burn everything to ash. The debate moved slowly, but the raid had opened a new view. As the convoy left, the neutral station prepared to host a new part of the talks. The leaders agreed to form a small task force with human officers and alien liaisons. It would hunt raiders and protect convoys in the sector. The plan felt small, but it had power. It was the first time the five powers had agreed on a common action that helped others. Weeks passed. The task force worked like a sewing hand, patching holes across the region. It found groups of raiders and sometimes brokered the surrender of small bands. It helped transport food to a world hit by famine. It stopped a small privateer group from taking a city in the Outer Rim. Each action added to human credit and to the fragile trust among the alien species. During this time, the alien commanders spent more hours with human officers. They walked in the ship's gardens where light grew in neat rows. They ate meals in the dining halls where people of many kinds shared plates. They learned simple songs and traded jokes. Over small cups of coffee and alien teas, they saw the human side of power. One late night, sat alone on the station's edge. He watched a small blue planet spin slowly in a distant orbit. He thought of how his people had once taken whole systems without question. That hunger for conquest still lived among parts of his society. He wondered if the path of honor was enough to stop the hunger. He felt a soft voice near his side. It was Laura. She had come to stand quietly with him. They did not speak for a long time. When they did, Laura told him she had grown up on a rough world where hunger and war had been close friends. She said she had learned early that power without a purpose was a fragile thing. She did not blame those who had chosen war. She only asked him to think about the cost. Touched the rail with a large hand. He made no promises, he only listened. Then came another signal, one that made the ship hum with worry. A deep space anomaly had appeared between two star systems. It did not match known patterns. It drew in small debris and then spat it out in strange arcs. Pilots reported strange readings. It seemed to grow when ships came near. The five powers feared such changes. An anomaly could threaten travel, trade, and life. If it grew, it might swallow whole colonies. The neutral station called an emergency session. Sensors showed that the anomaly moved toward a populated route. Admiral Cole called engineers and scientists to the command hall. The human team had ideas about how to study the anomaly. They wanted to send probes that could collect data from safe distances. The alien scientists offered risky ideas, suggested sending swarms to probe the edges, offered a device that could dampen the anomaly's field for a short time, argued for careful monitoring. The decision needed speed and care. The leaders decided to send a joint research group with human and alien crews. They would test the device at the edge while using human sensors to collect detailed readings. If the device could hold the field, they might guide the anomaly away from populated routes. The group flew out toward the dark. The anomaly sat like a black tear in space. It moved slow, almost like a living thing. As they approached, the sensors showed odd behavior. Space-time stretched and pulled. Communications lagged. Light bent in strange arcs. At the edge, the team sets dampener device. It hummed and glowed with a soft orange light. For a moment, it seemed to work. The anomaly pulled less strongly. The team cheered softly. Then the device strained. Its energy spiked. Warning lights flashed. The device began to fracture under the strange forces. Swarm moved in to help. The drones tried to shore the device with delicate tethers. Cloaked unit used a hidden field to stabilize the edge. Human engineers sent out surge stabilizers. For a while, the plan worked. Then the anomaly did something no one expected. It reacted to the device with a wave that carried raw energy. A pulse washed over the research group like a wind. It warped sensors and drove systems into strange modes. A small human research vessel took the brunt of the shock. Its hull bent and one of its reactors overheated. The team moved fast. Human medics ran to the ship. Alien mechanics joined and worked with human hands. They used tools that belonged to different races in a dance of quick actions. The human medics kept talking to the wounded in quiet voices. A young alien nurse from the hummed an old work song as she applied patches. The shared rhythm of effort tightened the group's resolve. Admiral Cole watched from the horizon spear as the crisis unfolded. He made a hard choice. He would order a controlled use of the flagship's field to stabilize the device long enough for the research group to pull back. The move would not use weapons, but it would push the flagship systems beyond normal limits. It would risk damage to the horizon spear itself. The human admiral chose to take the risk. He thought of the crew and the lives at stake. He gave the order. The horizon spear's massive systems came alive. The ship sent a gentle but firm field toward the point of crisis. The field wrapped around the dampener and the research group like a giant hand. The strain spread across the human flagship. Lights dimmed in certain decks, and warning tones filled the air. The device held. The research team pulled back toward safe space. Human and alien vessels limped home, some with holes and bent hulls. The horizon spear bore the cost. Its engines thrummed hard and a deck reported several burned conduits. Crew members worked to fix damage as the ship moved on. When the joint fleet returned to the station, the atmosphere felt heavy. The admiral's choice had saved many lives, but it had been costly. The flagship had suffered damage that would take time to repair. The human officers moved with tired faces but also a deep sense of quiet duty. They had given something to protect others. The alien commanders saw that sacrifice and found a new respect for the human way, thought of the code and the meaning of honor, felt the shift in the heart, the idea that power could be used to hold, not to break, clicked softly and admitted that sometimes the swarm should protect, not only consume, found something both fearful and hopeful in the human choice. The team studied the data from the anomaly. It would take long work to fully understand it. They did not know if it would return or if it had been only a short-lived event, but they had bought time. They had also shown that they could work together. The station held a simple ceremony to honor those who had risked and lost. It was quiet and without grand words. The 5 commanders stood together with Admiral Cole and Commander Laura. They lit small candles and placed them in a clear bowl of water that reflected the distant stars. The act was small, but it meant much. After the ceremony, the bonds between the species felt stronger. They had shared danger and sorrow. They had seen the human choice to bear a burden in a moment when they could have used fire instead. That memory took root. Months turned into longer seasons. Trade routes stabilized. The task force continued. Small raider bands dwindled. The joint research pushed deeper into the anomaly data. Some alien societies began sending students to human academies. Others invited human engineers to their shipyards. Exchanges grew slowly. At the final council, the 5 commanders gathered again in the meeting chamber. The tone was different now. It carried a steady calm. The commanders spoke of new agreements. They said that the region would be watched, that convoys would have joint guards, and that shared research would be open when safe. Rose and spoke for the first time with a new light in his voice. He praised the humans and their clear purpose. He said his people would change some old laws that gave too much power to the few, announced that the collective would share sensor data to help research, promised to use some of his drones to help mapping missions rather than only raids, offered to keep his dampening devices ready for future dangers. When it came to Laura, she said little. Her quiet voice carried the weight of her first words from months ago. She said humans had not come to rule. They came to stand when others could not. She said strength without hope was only a hollow shell. Admiral Cole looked at the gathered leaders and then at the stars. He said the Horizon Spear would return to its patrols. He thanked them for their help and said humans would always stand for life when it was possible. He added, simply, that many things remain unknown and they would need each other's help. As the meeting ended, the alien commanders looked at the human flag that moved gently at the station's center. The sight did not speak of conquest. It spoke of a choice. It spoke of a promise to guard without taking the joy of others. The 5 leaders felt a strange lightness. On the long journey home, watched the stars and thought of his son's voice. He had once told the boy that strength made men feared. Now he thought differently. He would teach a new lesson. Strength must be guided by care. Back in her ship, looked at the sky with a plan to build new cloaks that could protect transport lanes rather than hide warships. Sent his drones to map a forgotten comet field and found a lost world with simple life. Wrote notes for a new device that could calm small anomalies without heavy energy. In the quiet corners of the Horizon Spear, Laura sat and wrote a short letter to a friend. She wrote of simple things, the taste of rain on a certain world, the small smiles of crew members, and the sound of boots that never rushed to a fight. She did not write politics. She wrote about people. The region changed slowly like a tide. Old power games did not vanish, but a new pattern formed. The memory of the large ship that had come in peace stayed in minds. The Horizon Spear did not demand respect. It simply stood and the respect followed. When a small child from the convoy later sent a painted picture to the Horizon Spear, it drew a big ship with blue lines and a figure standing at the window. The child had drawn a scene of protection and hope. The painting hung in a low deck, next to a small plaque that read the names of those who had given their lives in the raids. Years later, the 5 alien commanders would tell their young about the time they met humans. They told them about a ship that did not shout and a people who carried heavy choices. They told the story of a night of fire and the day of quiet repair. They told how a group of different beings stood and chose to help. In the end, the galaxy did not become peaceful by force. It changed by slow acts, saving a convoy, fixing a broken vessel, sharing a cup of hot drink in a cold place. The Horizon Spear sailed on, its crews steady and humble. Its presence remained a quiet answer to loud threats. And somewhere in the dark, 5 alien flags flew a little differently. They waved not from pride alone, but from a new understanding. The stories of their battleships became stories of how they learned to use them. The human flagship had not conquered them with fire. It had changed them with a choice.